Yeah. I don't like using that, yeah. Are we, you guys good to get started? Yeah.
How about the planning commission?
All right, let's get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Andy, you want to just take us through a roll call?
And Pasquale,
Here.
Mr. Lynch. Susko.
Here.
Burke. Here. So.
Here. Okay, so we do have a quorum. We have nothing from any prior hearings to address. So we'll get started. And just so everybody knows, application Z 2022-07, we're going to do last if you're looking at the agenda. So that's just going to be moved to our fourth application. So we're going to get started right now with application Z 2022-02, Chapel Commons, Newtown Square, LP 2 St. Albans Avenue, Suite 200, pertaining to the subject property. The applicant is seeking a special exception to permit 8 dwelling units under section 172.70. Applicant also requests relief from any other section of the zoning ordinance that may be realized during the zoning hearing process. Subject property is located in the C1 commercial district. And who do we have here for this
Good
application?
evening. My name is Dan Rowley. I'm here representing the applicant. If I can just come up and hand out some
Yeah.
exhibit packets.
Just make sure that green light's on.
And what's your name? Sorry.
Anthony Rufo.
Anthony?
Anthony Rufo.
Okay. And Andy, is the application in filing order?
Files in order, you can see on the screen, we have publication, the application, the legal notice, photograph of the posting, and also the list of mail.
All right, and Sam?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. With respect to the items noted, we would ask that they be marked Township Exhibits 1, 2, 3, and 4 appropriately and made part of the record on behalf of the township as we proceed with this application.
All right, and I've been sworn in.
Do. RUFO.
And do we have anyone here that is a party protestant or wishing to make public comment on this application? No? All right. All good? All right, floor is yours.
Great. As I stated, my name's Dan Rowley. I'm with the law firm of Saul Ewing. I'm here tonight representing the applicant, which is Chapel Commons, Newtown Square, LP. Our zoning hearing board application can be found at Exhibit A1 in the exhibit packets I handed out. My client is the owner of 3 parcels of land, which include the addresses 2 through 8 St. Albans Avenue, 12 St. Albans Avenue, and also 3610 to 3612 Chapel Road. The deed for these properties is attached to the application as Exhibit A to the application. And a photo evidencing the posting of the property is located at Exhibit A2. This property is approximately 1 acre in size, and it has frontage along St. Albans Avenue, St. Albans Circle, and Chapel Road. It contains two buildings. The building on plan left is 2 to 8 St. Albans Avenue. And then there's also 12 St. Albans Avenue, which is a little more centered on the circle. 2 to 8 St. Albans Avenue currently has a number of commercial spaces and some office space on the second floor. And the 12 St. Albans contains a Remax building. The application that's in front of you only concerns the 2 to 8 St. Albans building. The property is also located in the C1 commercial district. We submitted this application back in January 2020, proposing to renovate a portion of the existing building in order to create a mixed-use development, keeping 4 existing commercial spaces on the first floor and converting the remaining space into 8 residential dwelling units, which is permitted by special exception under code. We were previously scheduled for a hearing on February 17th, and we actually briefly appeared in front of you, and we continue to today's date. And in the interim, we've had some discussions, ongoing discussions with the township regarding our project. And in response to the discussions with the township, we have agreed to revise our application to convert a portion of the building into 6 units instead of the previously requested 8 units. So the special exception request remains the same. It's just a lesser degree. It's 6 units versus the previously requested 8 units. In our submitted application, the conversion of the commercial space to residential included 6 dwelling units on the second floor and 2 on the first floor towards the rear of the building. And after these discussions with the township, we've agreed to remove the 2 residential dwelling units on the first floor, and that will be storage space for the tenants, the residential tenants at the property. The conversion of the property to residential use, a portion of the property to residential use, is not prejudicial, to the character of the immediate vicinity and will not have a detrimental effect on the surrounding area. In fact, the Newtown Township Comprehensive Plan actually specifically recommends that the development of this area include first floor commercial with apartments on top. So we believe it's consistent not only with the zoning code, but with the Township Comprehensive Plan. With that, unless there are any questions of me, I have Tony Rufo sitting next to me. He's the representative of the owner of the property, and I'll have him testify. Tony, can you state your name and business address for the record?
Anthony Rufo, 6 St. Albans Circle.
And can you just explain your affiliation with Chapel Commons, Newtown Square LP?
I'm the owner of the property.
Okay, and turning to Exhibit 3, can you just explain generally where the property is located using this aerial photograph?
It's at the corner of where Chapel Road meets St. Albans Circle and St. Albans Ave.
And turning to Exhibit A4, it's also on the screen for those of you in the room. Is this a survey plan showing the existing conditions on the property?
Yes.
And in my introduction, I summarized the existing conditions on the property of the 2 to 8 St. Albans building and the 12 St. Albans building, which is the Remax. Were those accurate?
Yes.
Okay. And as part of this application, are you proposing to convert a portion of the 2 to 8 St. Albans building into, so 4 commercial units would remain on the first floor and 6 residential units would be on the second floor?
That's correct.
Okay. And is it your understanding that the zoning code permits residential multifamily dwelling units as a special exception in this area?
That's correct.
And turning to Exhibit A5, is this a copy of the proposed floor plan for the project?
That's correct.
And the proposed floor plan for the project shows 8 dwelling units, 6 on the second floor, 2 on the first, and we've agreed to remove the two dwelling units on the first floor. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And turning to Exhibit A6, is this a chart that shows the parking calculations for the existing property and the proposed project, and after the proposed project?
That's correct.
And are we complying with parking requirements?
Yes, we're becoming more compliant.
And just to, yes, quickly summarize, so the existing, based on the existing uses of the property, 95 spaces are required. We currently have 94, so we're non-conforming as it currently stands. And after the proposed project, the required code parking is reduced to 66. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And turning to Exhibit A7, is it your understanding that the township requested that we submit a plan that shows how the parking on the property would be designated for each use?
Yes,
And is Exhibit A7 this plan that shows, for the purposes of code compliance, which parking spaces on the property will be assigned to each use on the property?
that's correct.
Do you believe that the mixed-use project is suitable for the property and will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare?
Yes.
I don't have any further questions for Mr. Russo.
What's the second floor being used for now?
We're using it for my offices. for
Just
my
office space
company.
currently? Is anything going to change in the way that the exterior looks? Or is this all just renovations on the interior of the layout?
We're looking at making some of the windows bigger and
The ones that we're
just
seeing
let more
across
light
the,
in. Yeah. So they're like small, they're not, optimal, but we're looking at the insides to see where it would make sense to put some more windows.
Right, and so the application is basically just for the change of use, and
Right.
there are going to be external renovations to, make it look nicer, and, we've already had some preliminary discussions with the township about coordinating on that.
How will the parking be designated? As in A7, will be signs or paintings or?
The yellow spaces will be designated to the tenants that live upstairs. So each unit has 2 bedrooms, will have 2 parking spaces designated to them. And the rest won't really be designated other than the fact that we encourage the businesses, employees to park in the back so the customers can park out front. The Remax building right now, they tend to park on both sides just because they have a door in the middle. And so they kind of, the customers and the people that work there just kind of park on both sides, come and go.
Okay, so A7 is just a recommendation of where people would be.
We're just
parking.
showing that we're well compliant. We have extra spaces all over the place.
Yeah, so in terms of practically, a sign in the ground designation, it would just be for, the residential portion. This plan is, the township had requested we submit basically for the purposes of code compliance to show, generally where each property would park, and to make sure that, it's compliant.
All the green on the plan is extra.
Right.
You said per the, I'm sorry. It calls for 66 and you have 94. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
questions on this one?
Gentlemen, if I might, for the record, I was contacted by Township Solicitor today in conjunction with the amendment to the application. The understanding that I have is that the township is not opposed to the application based on the application revision, removing 2 first-floor dwelling units, submitting a parking exhibit that designates parking spaces for the particular uses, both the commercial as well as the parking. the residential, and that the applicant has agreed to cooperate with the township with regard to the exterior facade and appearance, and any outdoor spaces particular to the tenancy. Is that an accurate depiction of your understanding, Mr. Rowley?
It is.
And is that agreed to? Should it be a condition of the board?
It is.
Just one other question. All the public services such as sewer, water, is all adequate for the additional residential units?
Yes.
And each of the units are similar in dimension and layout?
Yeah, they're all pretty similar.
They're all
The
two
residential units you're talking about?
Yeah, the residential units.
Yeah, they're all similar. They're all 2 bedrooms. 2 are a little bit smaller than the other 4, but not a lot.
Yeah, so if you look at Exhibit A5, it has the floor plans for the units,
I mean, they look fairly similar.
Yeah, exactly. I think the front 4, I'll call them, kind of along the front of the building there are, pretty identical. And then the 2 smaller units are on that back portion or over that back portion.
And is there any change or reconfiguration of the commercial spaces on the first floor?
No change at all.
And the first floor, the additional prior proposed units would be storage for the commercial units or for the residential?
For the residential tenants, just to clarify, you're talking about the first floor that in the application are shown as.
Yes.
Residential.
They're going to be open storage space,
Yeah, if, someone wants to have their bike.
but it won't be subject to rental or any additional usage other than those folks that are presently tenants, either commercial or.
That's actually not accurate. This was, we have a tenant in there now. That's a workout guy. It doesn't bother anyone. If we weren't going to convert it, we would just leave him alone. We could add space for storage if we wanted to.
Is it a commercial
I
tenant?
thought-
or
That's a
residential?
commercial tenant.
Oh,
That's one of the
commercial
reasons
tenant.
why I wanted to switch him, because I have a space for him down Westchester Pike that he would go to, was because what we were trying to do is have all the residential people go in the back. This way, there's no, not that there'd be any problems, but there'd be no commingling of commercial people going into a commercial store and like right next door, someone's going into a private residence. So we're like, let's just make them all residential. This way, all the people, all the public go in the front and the privates in the back, other than, employees. So, but that's a store. That's
All right, so right now, the space that was intended to be a residential unit, 2 residential units on the first floor are presently occupied by a commercial tenant.
yes.
And do you intend to keep that commercial tenant in that space? Because I thought I heard that you're going to use that space for storage.
That's the first I've heard.
That was, that was a misunderstanding. I apologize, Tony. I'll let him handle that.
Yeah, no, that's news to me.
Okay, so just for clarity purposes, so the
Absolutely.
proposal is that there were 4 commercial spaces on the first floor. Will there continue to be 4?
Yes,
So you're not expanding that, the one that was going to be residential is not a 5th unit.
no,
Okay, so what you have presently on the first floor are 4 commercial units and they will remain as such.
that's correct.
So there is no storage for tenants or anyone else.
No, that was my
Okay,
mistake. I
I
apologize.
I need to clarify because I thought I heard you say.
Absolutely, and I did. You're right.
Was that something you agreed to, you said, when you met with the township prior?
No, that was a conversation I had with the property manager.
Yeah, I see that the storage is on the A5 here, kind of listed in the basement for the tenants.
You're right.
So there's another level below that then? That's where they're going to be?
Yes.
Okay. Where's the entrance for these apartments at?
If you look at the lot that is facing on Chapel Road.
This is A4 we're
So
looking at.
if you're looking at A4, and you're looking at Chapel Road, the long parking lot with about 20 spaces in it on each side. It ends right in the corner, the crotch of the building there. There's 3 doors. Each of those 3 doors would lead up steps to 2 units. So there's a door in the middle where it says, I can't tell what that says.
Is it the same one if you go to the other exhibit that you have, basically you marked off them as parking
Yes.
spaces for the tenants in yellow, that section there?
Yes.
So that's on the A7, just the
Not to keep jumping around, but I think
Yeah, you have-
maybe
you have-
A5.
A5
which is the
shows it really well,
plan,
yeah.
It shows it best.
Pretty
You
good.
can actually see.
Oh, all
the
right.
doors.
There you go.
If you see steps. So on the corner, there's one, you go right in there on the corner, go straight up, and you go to the middle of the other building, and then you go right into the crotch and down the hallway and then up to the left.
Are they then just like sharing the same, like, think of these things we've seen on other apartments for trash? Are they just sharing the same dumpsters for trash removal as the
That's commercial.
the commercial tenants?
So there's a dumpster. If you look at in between the 2 buildings on the Chapel Road side, there's space for a dumpster.
You think that'll be adequate now that there's
Yeah.
many more
I think so.
people?
We could make it bigger if the township wanted or add, or we could put 2 and they share, but the people using them now is a whole lot of trash. A whole lot right there now.
That whole top section is currently just your office.
Just our
Right.
offices.
How many people are up there now in the offices?
There's 7. There's one on the other side, one guy on the other side, and then there's 6 on our side.
Like 7 people? Like I'm just.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's not utilized. I mean, it's underused.
Yeah, please.
Your testimony was you know that you have adequate sewer capacity, or have you reached out to our sewer authority to determine the number of ADUs you currently have in the building?
Well, we have that many bathrooms upstairs. We already have them as the number on the plan, they already exist. So,
I think that the municipal authority is going to look at these obviously as a new use, because it is. And I believe that they're going to require at least 1 EDU for each dwelling unit, at least 1. And then they're going to look at whatever commercial use that you have based upon your water data. So I guess as a condition of approval, you may want to just note that the applicant will have to seek municipal authority approval
Okay.
in that process.
That's reasonable,
for
yeah.
sewer capacity.
no problem.
Yeah, we don't have an
And
issue.
then
with that.
just one other component is compliance with the building code requirements, and we have a sprinkler ordinance that would also apply.
They're all things that they'll have to go through if this were to be
Yes,
approved
normal
anyway
procedure.
for.
Correct.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve application Z 2022-02 with the conditions that the description of the use is as testified, and that the second floor will be residential. There will be no first floor residential use. That the agreements or the conditions in place for the discussion between council and our township are met in terms of appearance and usage. That the municipal authority, that the applicants seek approval and receive approval from the municipal authority for the increased sewer usage. And that the applicant is compliant with all building codes.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. All right, next application is Z 2022-06, Debra Schroedel 136 Rockwood Road pertaining to the subject property. The property owner is seeking variance relief to add a covered unclosed front porch within the front yard setback as required by section 172-34B, subsection 5, as well as building coverage limitation of section 172-34B, subsection 3. Applicant also requests relief from any other sections of the zoning ordinance that may be realized during the zoning hearing process. Subject premise is located in the R3 zoning district.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm Debra Schroedel. This is my friend from Morris Park. Greg.
Family neighbor,
Greg, neighbor.
All right. And name?
Greg Taggart.
Craig. All right. Let's get them sworn in, yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Taggart. Like the driving school for the older guys.
And do we have the file in order?
Follows in order. Again, on the screen, you'll see the proof of publication, the posting, application, and the list of neighbors who received the mailing notice.
All right. Sam?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Based on the representation with regard to the exhibits, we ask that they be marked as Township Exhibit 1, 2, 3, and 4 respectively, and be made part of the record at this evening's hearing.
All right. And do we have anyone that will be making any public comment or wishes to be a party protestant on this application? Oh. As a party protestant?
No, my name's Bruce Hattersley. I live next door to her.
But just to keep things moving, are you going to be making public comment? Or do you want to be a party protestant or?
I'm not contesting it.
Okay, I just trying to get things in order before we start, because if you're going to be a party protestant, then I would move on to the next step, so, yeah.
No, I was just saying, I'm looking very forward.
Oh, all right. Thank you. All right, there you go, that's good. All right, I think we're ready to go, so the floor is yours to take us through your application, so.
Okay, what I'd like to do is just put a front porch on my house with covered, not enclosed. I'd like to use, I don't want a cement for the patio part of it, or the flooring. I want to use either composite decking or wood materials for it. I want it to go across the front of the house and to come out to 10 feet. And I would like the porch, there's several reasons. One, if you see the front of my house, it looks terrible, but I'd like to make it look more curb appealing. But the main reasons are I have grandchildren. I want to be able to sit out front to watch them. The sun comes up from that side. It gets very hot in the front of my house. And I also have my son-in-law and mother-in-law who visit, both use a cane and a walker, and it would be easier access for them, or it would make it easier for them to get into the house. Currently, there's no railing, the steps high, it's just not a safe spot.
What's the issue? How far back are we now? The house is currently what, 30 feet from the setback? Is that?
This plan proposes 20-foot setback from the right-of-way line, and in this district, 45 feet is required.
Okay,
However, our front yard definition allows a 3-foot encroachment by a porch. So therefore, the real setback to the porch would be 41 feet. So essentially, this is a 21-foot dimensional variance. And just one other thing to point out, there's a building coverage variance need as well.
yeah,
Currently, the ordinance requires or limits it to 20-foot max, or 20% maximum. And the proposed plan shows 22.5%. So it's 2.5% above the allowable.
how much smaller would this need to be to get them to that, just to kind of eliminate that?
I'm sorry.
How much smaller would they have to go with this front porch if they wanted to kind of get back to?
Talking math.
Oh, I wasn't gonna do it. Just trying to help to, if we can eliminate a variance here, if there's something that can be done to reduce the size of the deck to, ask for the minimum relief here.
Are you saying off the building itself or off the width of,
Off of what you're doing with what you're adding on, that's what's
Square
putting you
footage.
over.
how far out into the yard for the setback?
Yeah, if you were able to pull that back to
So-
reduce some of that,
So she was asking for 10, right?
right?
Right.
10. Would 8 get you in compliance with the setback?
I don't know.
You're cutting off
You have to
another,
Do the math on the property.
Okay,
Square footage of the property.
okay.
Prove it.
I mean, you understand that you'd have to do some stormwater management or
Right.
remediation if you were to exceed that 20%.
Okay, what,
is that correct, Andy, right? That they would have to
They would
do?
have to do a stormwater
Yeah,
plan
there's going to be a stormwater management.
if they exceed the 20%, right? So that's just
What would
something to
that
think about
entail?
too.
What would that
What
entail,
is
like
that?
requirements?
That's gonna be your next step
That's-
for,
Okay, okay.
and if you want just a quick rundown, I mean, if you want to give the simple version of what that's going to be, Andy, if you don't mind,
That
just
would
let
be
him know
great.
No,
what
I
they
mean,
be.
it is a separate application that's reviewed by the township engineer,
Okay,
and we have two different thresholds. I think that this may require an engineered system because you're over the percentage, but that is determined by the township engineer.
okay,
So the application is called a soil erosion application, but
okay,
it really deals with stormwater management.
okay.
okay,
It can be extensive. When I've
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
drainage pits and.
And that's, looking at this, if you were to reduce the size a bit, then you can kind of avoid that. You can avoid the second variance
how-
that you're,
Like, how much would I have, be able to,
that
Go
might be
out.
what they're trying to.
So your
without
variance,
doing any of that other?
Ed's got his calculator out, so.
right now you're off by 266 square feet. So even if you took 2 feet off the deck,
Right,
30 feet long, that's only 60 feet. Really, wouldn't get you there. That's what I was thinking.
300.
Yeah, so it's, a small. I mean, that's one aspect of it, right? That's the building coverage limitation.
Would you be willing to knock down some of your house?
Try not
Or the-
to.
How about if I didn't go all the way, if I didn't go
All the way
extend all
across.
the way across, I only went halfway
Something like that.
across.
Yeah, so
Over already then, right?
So you're 300, 150. I mean, you're close. I mean, either way, you're gonna be over. So instead of 22 and a half, you might be 21.
So you're still gonna have to go through
Still gonna have to go through
that
that.
process, yeah.
Okay. Don't see-
Would you want to continue this and not necessarily close the record so you don't have to come back and pay another fee, but
Right,
work with the township
Yes.
permit,
yeah,
That'd be great.
section,
yeah, yeah.
kind of come up with what you're willing to do in terms
See if we
of,
can narrow the playing field on the.
again, we don't want to
Yes.
guarantee anything or
Yep.
try to,
Okay,
discourage you from proceeding with this or
No.
not, but
Sure.
if we're opening up a can of worms here that you weren't anticipating coming in here tonight,
mhm,
then, might be worth just continuing.
okay,
Okay,
I'd like
I
to do
mean-
that then.
Andy, Sam, Kev,
And in the meantime, I can reach out to the township engineer tomorrow and just see what threshold you would have to comply with as far as stormwater management.
Okay, all right, that would be
I
great.
don't.
I think also
Yeah,
just
really
think
spend-
through, like, as far as the deck goes, think through the minimum size that kind of meets your needs. Because as part of the variance that you're asking for, we have to consider if it's the minimum relief that's kind of reasonable. So,
sure.
some people might think a 15-foot deck length is minimum, but, that's part of the discussion. So maybe look at that and see, does it need to be 10 by 30? Or was that just a comfortable, plan?
Sure.
So.
Okay. All right,
So it would be on, what's that, April 21st? Is that the next? Yeah,
Yeah, that'll
sorry.
be April 21st. There is I just want to point out, I'll check with the township engineer, but there is a difference between impervious coverage, which the applicant's under, and versus building coverage, which is what the request for relief is. So I can still check with her in regard to stormwater management, but there is a difference.
All right.
What I'm saying is you may not need to provide stormwater management.
That would be
Okay.
good.
That would be good. That would be good.
Okay. All right, so then it means I just come back here or I just,
Continue it on the record to April 21st.
Okay.
and We can,
If that's what you're requesting.
yes,
please.
yeah, please.
I would suggest in between now and then that you reach out to Andy and have a conversation particularly related. Maybe let's confirm your stormwater issue, but let's then also talk about your building area, that we can give you some possibilities
Okay.
that would help reduce that size. I did a quick calculation. I don't think you want to build a deck small enough, as small as you would have to. I think you're still going to have a building area coverage issue just because of the size here. So I think we could help you get to a spot that maybe would work.
Okay, that would be
Okay.
great. Thank you so much. Okay,
All right. We'll see you next month then. So good luck in the meantime.
all right, thank
All right.
you.
Have a good one.
Thanks, Andrew.
Have a good night.
I'm gonna jump ahead. All right, I'm gonna skip ahead here to application Z 2022-09. George Mehmeti, 106 Pine Street. Property owner is seeking variance relief to construct a retaining wall in the street right of way in accordance with section 172-104A. Applicant also requests relief from any other section of the zoning ordinance that may be realized during the zoning hearing process. Subject premise is located in the R3 zoning district. How are you? Yeah, sure, of course. And who do we, William, did you say? George?
No,
All right. Oh, thank you.
the property is actually owned by his parents. Father is here.
No.
The application moving forward.
All right,
He doesn't speak very good English, but he can answer the two questions that he would need to be.
no problem. Let's get you sworn in.
Yes.
And Andy, is the file in order for this application?
file is in order. Again, we had the posting, application, mailing list, and
All right.
Do we need to get the property owner on record approving someone that's not the property owner to testify as a witness?
Well, I think that if he's going to testify that he has it, we get a letter from counsel to verify that at some juncture, and I think that would probably be okay.
I'm good either way. I can either provide a letter tomorrow. Or he can testify. He does
Well, I
understand
think
English.
for the record, we probably need something in writing.
Okay, I'll provide that tomorrow.
And Andy, you're good with this being admitted into?
Yes,
Same,
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry, said Andy, sorry.
I was way late there for a second. Yes, with respect to the material that has been offered, I asked that it be marked as township exhibits 1, 2, 3, and 4 respectively, may be part of the record with regard to today's proceeding. Thanks.
All right. And do we have anyone here that is a party protestant or wishing to make public comment on this application? No? All right. All yours.
Good evening. In addition to what's been marked as township exhibits, I've handed up a packet of 6 exhibits. 2 and 3 are really the ones that matter. This is an application that was filed after the fact of the building of a retaining wall, as well as putting up trees at the corner of 106 Pine and Tennis Avenue. My client was advised that was in violation, both from the visual standpoint of the trees as well as from the proximity of the retaining wall to the right of way. The basis upon which my client had built that was the hardship associated with 3 items. First is cars parking on his lawn, at least partially, on a consistent basis when people needed extra parking because there was nothing to prevent them from doing so. Second is because there's no stop sign at this intersection, he would also get damage to his lawn as cars would make the turn from Tennis onto Pine. And the third is that there was significant foot and animal traffic into his yard, and he does have young children there, and it to be quite frank, or however you want to put it, became a minefield for the children to be able to play in that front yard and be there because animals, primarily dogs on their walks, would be leaving there. Fun stuff there. The picture I had marked as exhibit A2 shows all of the trees and the retaining wall. My client and I discussed this, and first and foremost, we understand the visual impact of the trees, and my client is willing to remove those trees in order to satisfy that portion of the township's requirements. My client has also gone through stormwater management with the township and has no problems there. There's no water issues affecting any properties as a result of the building of this wall, which has been there for approximately 7 months. 7 months, approximately 7 months has been there.
We just did the driveway.
When my client had the driveway done and had the permit pulled, he did indicate that he was intending to build a retaining wall at that time and received the permit anyway. It's really, in my opinion, the trees that are the issue here. And he understands, and I understand, that those can't be there because of the impact upon the community and the negative there. Exhibit A3 is just a posting of the site, which Andy already indicated was fine. 4, 5, and 6 really just show where the property is, the plot plan, and a very rudimentary or difficult to read sketch, but I don't think they're needed. I think what we're looking at here is the fact that we know that we're into the right of way with the wall. We know that the trees have to go. That is the hardship, is the fact that he's getting damage consistent to his property, impact on the children in the front. There's really no adverse impact once the trees are removed on the health, safety, and welfare of the community. And if you look at the picture, and if you're familiar with the area, this actually kind of enhances the area and provides a benefit to the community because it really does bring up the community. They did a nice job. And finally, you know, it is the minimum request that we could do in order to prevent that on those corners there. We do have, as I indicated, Mr. Mehmeti here to testify. If you would adopt those statements by me and any questions of the board.
So the wall's in the right of way, correct?
Yes.
So let's say Pico wants to come out, the township wants to do something, wall's got to come out.
Yes.
And that would be the cost of the owner to do that if
In the situation where something like that happened, as a condition of approval, should this board wish to approve it, yes, my client understands that he would have to bear the costs associated with the removal while that work is being done.
And the trees are coming down.
Will be removed. 100%, no issues with that.
All of them?
All of them.
As much as they want us. to-
Well, you know, obviously, you know, if you want to keep somebody, we talked about all of them. But, you know, it's really the corner of the property that's the problem, but it's those sight lines that become an issue.
For those terms, yeah.
Alternatively, we would be willing to work with the township engineer to work on the sight lines and condition that upon removal of any and all trees that affect sight lines.
I think the issue is though, I mean, I don't know how tall they'll grow, but I imagine like if they're green giant arborvitaes or something like that, they'll get 15, 20 feet tall and grow closer together. So you essentially have visual impairment for anybody that's coming either way there.
Certainly, I think it's more on
So keep
tennis,
one.
but at the same time, we would be willing to.
We'll put new ones every 5 years.
Yeah, I think the other question I had is, so knowing that, you know, you're in violation of the height of the wall, considering the max is 2.5 feet. You know, and it's supposed to be 12 feet away, you know, anytime that it's more than 2.5 feet, has there been any, you know, consideration for, you know, I don't know how high the courses are. I imagine they're probably 8 inches tall. Looks like it's 4 courses high. You know, to meet that requirement, any consideration for, you know, taking a course or whatever gets you down to the 2.5 feet requirement, so you're not in violation.
I just spoke with my client and he is willing to make sure that any portions that are above 2.5 feet will rectify.
And Andy, even from, you know, your area of expertise and
Yeah, I mean, I was concerned with the actual height of the wall, especially where it's in the clear site triangle. So I believe the applicant agreed to meeting the ordinance. But the one thing that I recognized on the site plan was it appears that the properties have been merged. Is that a fact? You also own, or do your parents own that very corner lot?
Yeah.
Okay. So effectively, I guess that lot, that remaining lot that's shown on your deed plan, that's a merged lot. Would you agree?
307.
Sorry.
Yeah, it looks like 307 that we're saying is the merged lot
lot.
now. Just because on Exhibit
I'm sorry,
A4.
it's a little bit blurry.
Oh, you got another.
If you look up on the screen, it's that very corner.
Yeah,
So there's three lots that are outlined. The corner lot, which appears on the tax map, would technically be an existing non-conformity if they weren't merged. So I believe that the property, because of the development of the previous driveway and now the wall, I think that those lots are effectively merged.
We agree.
Malone, I'm sorry, maybe I didn't hear you in your explanation. How long has the wall been up?
About 7 months.
7 months? And as part of your application, you're also asking for essentially building permits. You know that process is not necessarily through zoning board. That would be if there is approval, you would have to go through the township for the proper procedures. We're not granting you a permit this evening.
Despite the fact that it's already there, we certainly know.
Right, so you would have to go through that entire procedure and pay the appropriate fees. You
Yes.
understand that?
But that's not for future work. That's just to cover what's already been done on the
Existing.
property without a permit.
Existing.
Gotcha.
So in other words, we have to kind of walk back in time.
Yep.
And we understand that.
I think the other, and just so you know, the applicant did respond to our notice. That's why they're here this evening. So it has been an ongoing issue for quite some time, since October. So I would just ask the board to consider a time frame in which to have this work done, if you were so inclined. I can get the permits out fairly quickly. I think the safety factor is sooner the better.
Would a condition be suitable? So if to the extent that the wall exceeds the 2.5 feet, would it be, I guess, suitable to get the township engineer's input to which section of the wall, if any of the wall, impedes the sight line?
I mean, I think that we can do that in the field. I mean, if you'd like to engage.
No, I mean, if that's something
we
in
can
your
accomplish
purview,
that,
that's
you
fine.
know.
I think Andy and I could deal with that.
Fair enough.
Andy said you want a timeline. What would the township? I mean, what's a recommended reality of them doing this township?
I mean, personally, I think at this point in time, I think 2 weeks from the date the permit's issued is adequate.
Malone, so I understand your client's position with regard that he's willing to pay for the cost should any utility or the township have any need for that space within the cartway. He's willing to come down to the regulation standards for the ordinance with regard to the fence size. He's willing to clear the trees and anything that would block the sight lines. Everything be compliant, but for the exact position of where the structure encroaches the carway today.
Yes.
That's pretty
That's
much your
fair, yes.
position? And accede to the timeline that the board may.
Of course, whatever, should the board wish to approve it, any conditions.
And
that are
you'll
reasonable.
agree to the merger of that lot on the corner.
We're familiar, yeah.
How high is the retaining wall now?
Gotta be
Yeah, I don't think it's much more. I don't think it's up to 4 feet. I think from my visual inspection and
30 inches,
discussion is.
30?
maybe 28, 30. I don't
Okay.
know. Put a tape measure on it.
We can work that.
I don't see that being an issue again, should the
Right.
board wish.
The only put was
Yeah.
like when they old and they're not cement, you can pop them out.
Sorry, I was talking over a couple of things here real quick, so.
All right, I will make a motion to approve D 2022-09 with the 2-week timeline after all permits are released and the trees removed and the sight lines are approved by the township.
All the trees or?
Well, the trees with the township,
The sightline.
with the sight line with that. So if they decide half the trees, whatever the township and you agree, the sight lines are the safety of the roads.
I would also add the stipulation that should the township or any utility require the
That's right.
space, that the cost of removal would be on the applicant.
Right. Since the wall's in the right of way, you'd be responsible for removal from the township PICO and the cost would be.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Also the merger of the lot.
Other merger of the lots.
Yeah, my God, please get that on the record.
Yes, please.
Is there a second?
I second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe I'll reach out.
Very good.
I don't know.
Thank you. very much.
See you, Bill.
Thank you.
Next application is Z 2022-07, Georgiana B. Kane, 251 Arden Road, Broomall, PA, pertaining to the subject property at 0 Farview Road. The property owner is seeking a variance relief and special exception approval to construct a single-family dwelling on the property, which is considered a non-conforming lot in accordance with the provisions of sections 172-34B and 172-141. Applicant also requests relief from any other section of the zoning ordinance that may be realized during the zoning hearing process. Subject premise is located in the R3 zoning district. And Ms. Kane,
Yes.
and
Hi, good evening. Debra H with the firm of Riley, Wright, Burhan, and Greco here on behalf of the applicant property owner.
all right, and well, let's get them sworn in. Right, and Andy, is the file in order?
Files in order. Screen, again, the application, proof of publication, the mailing list, and
All right, thank you. Sam?
Based on the representation, we would ask that the exhibits be marked accordingly as township exhibits 1 through 4 and moved into the record on behalf of the township.
All right, and do we have anyone that is here who will be making public comment or wishes to be a party protestant? As party protestant? All right, and I'm gonna have you step forward just to get your name on the record and let's get you sworn in. And I'm just gonna take you through real quick so you understand as a party protestant what your rights are here. So those granted a party protestant status will have the ability to cross-examine witnesses, present their own testimony and evidence, and be able to appeal any decision made by the zoning hearing board. If there's any, sorry, we're good. Sorry, went into the next section, but let's come forward and get your name on the record, get you sworn in.
Joseph Campaglia, CIAMPAGLIA.
And you're,
Live at 303 Farview Avenue, which is one property removed from the proposed building.
and is that microphone on at that table there? Is there?
I have no idea. It's green.
It's green, good. And that's fine. You can, if you want to sit down for now, but just stay up front. And your name?
William Mancy, M as in Mary, ANSI, 111 Hickory Lane, Newtown Square.
You could both raise your hand.
I do. I do.
All right. All right.
And I don't have any objection, obviously, to them asking any questions or making comment, but I'm going to just preserve an objection on the record just till I have a better understanding through the course of the hearing what their adverse interest is in the application.
That's fair.
May I approach and I pass out some
Yep.
pre-marked exhibits?
Sir, what was your last name again? I'm sorry.
Campaglia, Ciampaglia.
And before I get into the testimony itself, I just wanted to give the board a very generic overview and background on what the application is. We're here tonight, as indicated in the notice, for certain variance relief associated with a non-conforming property in order to allow for a single-family residential home on the property. The property itself has some very unique characteristics to it. It is very long and narrow. It is a double frontage. And most importantly, it is legally non-conforming in terms of the lot size itself, as well as the minimum lot width and the minimum contiguous building area. And as the board can probably appreciate, having a non-conforming lot size really creates a lot of difficulties. It translates into corresponding inability to comply with a lot of the area and bulk requirements. Obviously, if you had a 12,000 square foot lot, you'd be able to meet the setbacks based on what we're proposing this evening, which we'll get into a little bit more in the testimony. But the courts have accepted a non-conforming lot as a uniqueness in and of itself for purposes of justifying the grant of a hardship to allow for variance relief. In addition, your own zoning ordinance in terms of the actual minimum nonconformities of the property has recognized that there's a legal right to continue those. It's a constitutionally protected right that the courts have recognized when you have a nonconforming condition. So in terms of the actual scope of the relief that's currently before this board, and it changed slightly based on a recent interpretation that I got from your zoning officer. But our first one is we're seeking an interpretation that the board recognizes, as your ordinance does, the right to continue having the lot itself, which has been in existence since my client's property or family has owned it since 1930. So the lot itself is lawfully non-conforming in terms of the minimum lot size, as well as the minimum lot frontage and the minimum contiguous building area. So we don't think we need variance relief from that because the ordinance itself allows you to continue existing nonconformities. However, in the alternative, should the board not agree with that, we would be seeking a dimensional variance from those applicable provisions. As second, we're seeking certain setback relief, which you'll hear exactly the scope of that relief. But we're seeking from the front yard requirement and the side yard. And again, because this is a corner lot, double frontage, it's a little more unique in terms of what those setbacks are. Third, we're asking for relief from the maximum permitted building area, not the impervious coverage, but the building area. And again, you'll hear testimony tonight that that's necessary because of the size of the lot itself is creating that difficulty. And at some point, if you scale it down too much, it just becomes a very unfeasible home and it's out of character of the neighborhood. The application last had originally sought relief from a driveway setback, but after further discussion with the zoning officer, he's agreed that that setback from the driveway is not necessary. So we would be withdrawing the request in the application for the dimensional variance from section 172-34B8. Which was to permit the driveway to be located within 5 feet of the property line. So we no longer need that variance. And lastly, we are seeking, should the board determine to grant the application, we would be seeking a 6-month extension of your normal provision under the ordinance that you pull the building permit. I mean, we're hoping that that timing works, but just with having to prepare stormwater management, grading, design plans, and have it reviewed and approved by the township engineer and the code department, sometimes that takes a little bit more time. So that essentially summarizes what we're here before you this evening. I do have 2 witnesses, Mrs. Kane herself, who will testify as to standing and provide you with some background. And then we have an expert witness, Nick Vastardis, who's our professional engineer who prepared and designed the site plan. Are there any initial questions before we get started?
Not yet.
Okay. right, so we're sworn in. Could you, again, state your name and address for the record?
Absolutely. I'm Georgiana Kane, Kane, and I'm currently at 251 Arden Road in Broomall.
And you're the applicant and the owner of the property subject to tonight's hearing, which is known as Farview Avenue, correct?
That is correct.
And at this point, there's no address assigned to it because it's still a vacant lot, correct? And I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit A3. And is this a copy of the deed dated April 4th, 2019, which transferred the property from the estate of Frida Bell into your name?
Yes, Frida's my mother.
Okay. And how long has the property been in your family's possession?
My grandfather purchased it in 1930, and we've owned it. It's been in the family ever since, from my grandparents to my parents to myself.
And the deed, the 1930 deed, which is not that legible, is marked as Exhibit A4.
That's correct.
And did your mom or any of her family members ever own any of the lots adjacent to this particular lot? Now, referring your attention to Exhibit A5, that's an aerial Google Earth plan. And could you just describe for the board where your property is shown on that particular aerial plan?
We're at the corner of Farview and Main, and that's, oh, it's not up there. Okay, that's the corner of Farview and Main.
Okay.
There was the only vacant lot there now.
There happens to be a car sitting in the grass.
There we go.
On the lot there, just for the board's edification. Can you please describe for the board the current condition of the property and the surrounding properties and their uses?
It's a vacant lot, and it is it's a corner vacant lot, and it's surrounded by 2 residential homes. Actually, all corners.
And what are you proposing to build on the property?
We're proposing to build a single-family, 2-story, it's 21 wide by 53 deep, with the overall footprint of approximately 1,060 square feet. And the home would be approximately 1,900 square feet.
Now, is this the same size home that you were originally intending to build on the property before you made application to the zoning hearing board?
No, it is not. We were actually planning to do a 2,500 square foot home, which is pretty much identical to the home that is now currently being constructed across the street, 50 feet away.
And referring to Exhibit A7, which is a rendering, is this generally depict what you would envision the house to look like, the elevation of the house to look like?
Yeah, that's pretty much what it would look like.
Okay, and you may spruce up a
And we're
little
gonna,
bit.
yeah, we will jazz it up, of course, to make it appealing to the rest of the neighborhood. We'll do landscaping and whatever is appropriate.
Do you know what your intentions are for the house after it's built?
My husband recently retired. We were thinking about downsizing to the home. We're not quite sure if that's going to be, I'm still employed. So we're in that process. So we're a little unsure.
And I know you said your family's owned this lot for a number of years. So I'm assuming you're pretty familiar with the neighborhood where the property is located.
Oh, yeah, my husband and I have been in Newtown Square, Broomall area since 1984. My husband actually grew up here. He was born and raised on Brook Hill Road. So we're very familiar with the neighborhood. We have friends in the area.
And did you take into consideration the character of the neighborhood when you were designing the proposed home?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's a very unique neighborhood. There are just a very lovely mix of singles that we would love to try to build one ourselves. So.
And were you originally intending to model the design of this particular home with the one that's under construction across the street from you?
Yes, we had spoken with their builder to see if we could do the same.
And
but it's not going to. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead, finish what you're going to say.
No, we decided to downsize it to request the minimum amount of variances that would be required to build the home. So we ended up choosing to make it a bit smaller. We went from a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath with a 2-car garage, which is what is across the street, to a 2-story, 3-bedroom, 2.5 with a 1-car garage.
And do you know if the house that's across the street is on a similar sized lot as your
It's very
size?
similar.
Okay. And referring you to Exhibit A8, is this a copy of the approved permit plan for the house that's currently under construction?
Oh, yeah, that's,
And that's the plan that you're referring
was-
to,
yeah.
for the dimensions that you just mentioned to the board?
201, this 201 Main, yeah.
And is your proposed home also similar in size to some of the other homes that you're familiar with in the neighborhood?
Oh, yes, absolutely. There are, let me get my, there are 2 on Main Street. I believe there's one on Pine. There are a few that are smaller, size lots like this.
And based on these observations, do you believe that the proposed home would fit within the character of the neighborhood?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Other questions I have for Ms. Kane.
Be clear
I just
here.
have two questions.
Well, that's fine. We'll get to it. I just want to make sure that the two of you understand, you have the ability to cross-examine, any witness that she presents just based on the testimony that was given. So I don't
Okay.
want to make this an opportunity to present. We will get to that, your testimony, but do you have any questions based on what was just said?
I do.
All right. So if you want to come up here, do you mind sitting up here, and only because we need the microphone?
On the properties you mentioned that were similar in size, that were on Main Street, I believe you said. Are any of those properties on corner lots?
No.
No.
No, oh, excuse me, they are 201
Right
Main
across the
Street,
street.
right across the street is a corner lot, absolutely.
All right, that's one.
201,
One.
okay, so the other one is a similar lot in size, but not a corner lot.
Not
But
a corner lot.
201 Main is, it's an almost identical property,
That's the house that's under construction.
absolutely.
And Mr. Campaglia, did you have a question
Yes.
for the?
Are you aware that the house across the street that you used as reference had to be elevated about 2 more feet because there is so little drainage, they hit rock, solid rock, and they didn't want to go through the expense of breaking up that rock, and so they had to raise the house a little bit. Are you aware of that?
Am I aware that they had to change the grade? Yes.
Yes, okay. Why do you think that would be a factor with your home?
I'm not.
If you don't know the
I
answer, that
I'm not an engineer, I'm
The
sorry.
reason I'm asking, that there's a reason for it. My main objection has to do with water control.
And we do have
I-
our professional engineer who will be testified. And of course, obviously, that's not within this board's jurisdiction, but should the board grant this application, the stormwater management will be fully vetted out. You have a very thorough codes department, your township engineer will make sure that all the Ts are dotted, that it complies with all the requirements of the state for permitting conservation district and all your local ordinances as well. So
Just so you understand, the reason I'm asking is that the folks that owned it, built the house across the street, there was stormwater management built into that agreement. However, it had to be altered dramatically because of what, they hit stone. So there was very little drainage when they were putting a house in. And I'm concerned about stormwater. That is my major concern.
And Mr. Campaglia, so that does come up at all these hearings that we go through, that it always comes down to stormwater management.
But how do we address what they don't know about, which is subterranean?
And that's, again, not for this here right now, but a fair concern, and again, will come up once they make it past this step of the process.
And what happens if, when they're excavating, they discover there's something new, a new problem?
And I assume that stuff happens all the time, that they'll have to deal with that and rectify that. That's, what
I'm
happens.
asking for a very selfish reason. I
No,
live
that's-
downstream, down the hill from that house, and we get water.
Yeah,
In fact, the people right across the street from where you want to build your house, if you notice that, there's a tarp in front of their house because they get rain surface water every time it rains.
and just to keep things
For
on,
the record, there's a whole procedure that the applicant would have to go through. First, they would have to do a soil investigation. They would have to go through design. That would all be reviewed and approved by the township engineer. Once that gets approved and the permits are issued, then there's a whole inspection process. So even though maybe the house across the street had encountered rock and had to alter their stormwater management system that was originally designed, they had to go through the procedure with the township engineer to alter that. So that was all done through the proper channels when they found that out.
Let me ask you.
And
when we-
regardless, if this board, whether they granted or denied the application, if they granted it and we couldn't make the stormwater work, we couldn't build the house. I mean, that's a separate process. And that's something that the applicant has to make work because the township's not going to approve a stormwater permit if it doesn't work. So whatever that cost is, if it doesn't perk and they have to do something else, I mean,
But-
that's something that,
That's a construction issue.
Yeah.
A permitting issue. That's not a zoning issue per se. We're mindful of it here.
Okay.
And we talk about it and we try to ensure that that's going to get done, but that would be if they're granted permission to build. Compliance is through the construction phase of this.
I just want to make sure of that. That's why I'm objecting because I
We're
know
very-
that there
the
are
board's very
things you
mindful.
don't see. And I'm just want to make sure that all the i's are dotted and the t's are crossed. That's all. Because I don't want to get washed away,
No,
as is happening to some people downstream from that house, that proposed building.
I'm sure township is well aware.
all right, and just to get Mr. Campaglia, thank you. Obviously appreciate it. You're welcome to stay there if you have other questions. that
No,
come
that's
up.
the only question I have.
Oh, all right, well, thank you. So Mr. Manzi, you can hang around then, but we'll get, so we'll let you get back to it.
okay, I have no other questions for this
I have
witness.
a quick question. You indicated in your testimony, Ms. Kane, that this was a single lot owned by your family.
Yes.
Just out of curiosity, the exhibit A3 is your deed. In the deed, it references in the third paragraph, all those certain lots, and it expressly states for being lots 36 and 37. Were these, was this lot part of another lot at some point in time?
I was only aware of that one section.
Well, you see, it
Where-
says two lots.
I might be able to shed some light on that.
Well, let
Thank
the
you.
applicant.
I really am, I'm not aware. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to
And
that.
that's going back to a plan from 1924. Made by Ware and Theme, August 1924, and lot layout revised October 6, 1924.
Sam, which exhibit is this right here?
A3, it's in the deed.
Okay.
I really.
Knows, maybe the lots were
Sorry?
2,000. I can say maybe the lots were 2,000 square feet back then, you know what I mean?
I don't know.
201 Main Street was the same.
Yeah.
Where it was owned independently. We actually denied that here at the zoning level and then it was the other county. So 201 Main Street was not approved.
And I offer something. I went to the courthouse yesterday and looked at that plan from 1924, and the lots were 20 feet wide by
Okay.
100 feet long.
So that makes sense.
So there are two lots, they're each 20 feet wide for a total of a 40-foot.
Okay.
Does that
Thank
mean we
you.
should come in with another house then?
Thank you for your input. I really
Only if you
appreciate
can make
that.
it 12 feet wide.
That makes sense based on,
I assume the applicant's going to accept that testimony?
I'll accept that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Exhibit A7, is this the proposed home? Did you say it was
It's going to
two
be
stories
similar
or?
to that. It's
two
two
and a half?
stories. The pitch of the roof may be a little bit different because of the way the dormers and the width is going to be. It was just a rendering. We didn't want to incur the cost of the architectural designs at this point. We're just in discussion mode right now.
When you say 2 stories,
That's the way the roof is. Just kind of looks like it's really straight up like that,
How
but it
many-
is not
is
gonna
there
look like
3
the.
living floors? 3
No,
living?
that's the attic.
It's just an unfinished attic space.
Yeah, it's not gonna look like what is affectionately known as
Mhm.
birdhouse.
What is the overall like elevation that we're looking at? How many feet higher are you
We are
going?
going to. I think it's gonna be between 27 and. is it 30? Yeah, if you're talking about the
Yeah.
height,
Yeah,
So the maximum building height is 35 feet. So it obviously would be under that.
yes.
we don't know
Will
what it
be
is.
Between 27 and 35. We're not.
Just a
well,
big
we're
range.
not-
I'm just curious.
Yeah,
What?
Again-
Sorry. Okay.
No, you're good. I guess there's no official plans yet for what this house is gonna be, other than how many.
it's
How many
going to
square
have,
feet you have to
this
cover?
front is going to be the garage. This, what you're looking at on the far right is the garage. And it would, that's.
So there'd be a
one-
side entrance into that garage.
That would be. I'll go this way.
No, you're all right.
Okay, Farview is to the right. So those 2 windows essentially would be the garage. And then above is going to be the master. The master is going to go up there. On the back side of that, that's only going to be a 1-car garage. And then it will kind of go like that, like the plan.
And
So it will be, you expecting it will be 3 bedrooms, 2
3
and a half
bedrooms
baths
first,
with
yeah.
a 1-car garage.
Yeah, and finished, the basement. It will have a basement, not a crawl space.
the front of the home is on Main,
Correct.
and the garage, the driveway on
Farview,
Farview.
correct. So our driveway would be next to the
Mhm.
other driveway on Farview. And then on the house to our left, their driveway would run. It runs to our left
Okay.
of the front of the home.
Looking at that picture, you said, I believe you said
Oh, there's
that,
the jog out, yeah.
I see.
So you can see the garage is up and that's the garage right there, exactly. That little nosh out would be the mechanicals,
I see.
the AC unit. And then that would be, appropriately landscaped, however fits in nicely with that area. Tip laurel or something.
Okay, looking at this, do you know, and thinking back to the elevation, do you know what was changed? You said you reduced the size.
We reduced the size, we reduced it, Sandra's is 55 feet.
You reduced, what was reduced? The height, the
The
length?
the length of the home was reduced from 55, or the width, excuse me, from 55 to 52,
53, you said.
53, excuse me, 53. And we removed the 1 garage to make sure that we had enough. We reduced the, is it the impervious cover? The
Building coverage.
The building coverage, excuse me. So we actually have less building coverage than Sandra's percentage across the street would add less. And that was why we chose to do that. And again, it's a 3-bedroom, 1st floor kitchen, living space, bathroom, laundry area.
Did you have another?
I do.
Okay.
Nick? Oh, cool. Yeah, sure. Thank you, though.
Oh.
You state your name and business address, please?
Sure, Nicholas Vastardis, Vastardis Consulting Engineers, 29 Harvey Lane in Malvern.
And Vistardis Engineers obviously is your employer, is that correct?
Correct.
And Exhibit A9 is a copy of your CV, which lists all your educational background and professional qualifications. And I know that Mr. Vistardis was recently accepted as an expert before this board, so I would request that he similarly be accepted as an expert this evening in field of civil engineering.
Sure.
Mr. Vistardis, you familiar with the property and the surrounding area?
Yes.
And can you explain for the board the existing conditions on the property and whether there's any unique characteristics of the property itself?
Sure, it's unique, as it's a narrow lot, it's 40 by 100, it's a corner lot, so it's got two front yards, a side yard, a rear yard. It does not meet minimum lot size, does not meet in the contiguous area, and it does not meet the setbacks.
And the
Lot width,
frontage,
sorry, yeah.
correct? Okay.
Correct,
So the minimum lot area in the R3 district is 12,000 square feet, is that correct?
that's correct,
And the existing lot area is 4,000 square feet?
correct,
And the minimum lot width is, in this particular zoning district is 80 feet,
correct,
and the existing is 40 feet, correct?
correct,
And then I believe the minimum contiguous building area is 6,000 square feet.
that's correct.
And your office obviously prepared the existing zoning plan that's marked as Exhibit A6, correct?
That's correct.
And referring to this plan, and I know some of this may be redundant because Ms. Kane walked through it, but could you explain again just what's being proposed for the property?
Yep, it's more or less a 21 by 53-foot building. There is a notch, as she said, in that one corner. It's going to be a driveway servicing it, a sidewalk to the front door, and we'll have stormwater management.
And you heard the one gentleman had expressed some concern with stormwater, and you intend to fully design a stormwater plan that meets all applicable local, county, and to the extent applicable state requirements as well, correct?
We're required to, yep.
Now, in your opinion, would the construction of any single-family home on this property require some form of zoning relief?
Yes,
And you understand that the application sought a certain variance relief, as I described earlier in my introduction, relating to the setbacks as well as the building coverage, correct?
correct.
And let's start first with the setback variances, which are from section 172-34, capital B56, 172-109, and 172-112. And that's related to the front yard and side yard setbacks. And can you explain how each yard of a corner property is designated?
Okay, corner lot has two front yards. The rear yard has to be opposite the lesser width of the property, so that would be Farview. So the rear yard is kind of fronting Kane, and the side yard would be the bottom of the sheet.
And what is the required front yard setback for a corner property in the R3 district, and what's proposed?
30 feet. We're proposing 8 on Farview and 20 on Farview and 8 on Main.
And with respect to the side yard setback for a corner property, what's the requirement under the ordinance and what's being proposed?
25 is required, and we're proposing 11.
And in terms of the rear yard setback, that is fully compliant with the ordinance, correct?
Yep, 25 feet.
Now, given the lot dimensions itself, with the front yard and in terms of the front yard and side yard setbacks, could any size home be built on this 40-foot wide house in compliance with the zoning ordinance?
No, because the combination of the front and side yards they actually overlap. The corner of my plan, there's a little inset, shows that it's actually a negative space of about 15 feet. So there's physically impossible holding the setbacks.
And would you agree that the property's unique narrow width and depth and the non-conforming size create a hardship that make a variance from the required front yard and side yard setbacks necessary?
Yes,
And given the non-conforming lot size and width, you already said no house could be built on the property, but would you agree that the hardship was created by the characteristics of the property itself and not anything created by the applicant?
yes.
And in your opinion, would the grant of the requested variance alter the essential character of the neighborhood or be detrimental to the character of the neighborhood?
No, it's the home will fit in with what's there size-wise. Shouldn't be detrimental at all.
And with respect to we're still talking about the setbacks here, then we'll move to the other one, but would you agree that what's being proposed is the minimum variance necessary to be able to construct any reasonably sized home on the property?
Yes. Home is already 1,050 square foot, includes the garage. If we went by code, it'd be 800 square feet. Again, with a garage, you really can't build a home that would fit in with the neighborhood. that size.
Turning to the second variance, which is to permit the building area of 26.5%, whereas 20% is the maximum permitted. Can you explain again why this variance is necessary?
Yeah, again, the non-conforming lot size, not to be redundant, but you'd be able to put an 800 square foot footprint on there, which is much smaller than anything in that neighborhood right now. The 26.5% the applicant's requesting allows us to do 1,050 feet. We can get a garage in there. And it'll be something more in line with what's in the neighborhood right now.
And again, given the unique non-conforming lot characteristics and the property itself, would you agree that the hardship was not created by the applicant, but was in fact created by the conditions of the lot?
Yes,
And in your opinion, similar to what you testified for the setbacks, you would agree, I assume, that this would be the minimum relief necessary to provide a reasonable size home on the property.
yes, I do.
And as mentioned several times, and earlier from a question from the other gentleman, should the board choose to grant this application, you would be proceeding with designing a fully compliant stormwater management plan in accordance with all applicable code requirements and obtaining the applicable grading permits and stormwater permits, correct?
As required, yep.
That's all the questions I have.
Okay. Mr. Manzi, do you have any questions based on the testimony that was given?
No questions. I do have comments I'll save for
Yeah,
later.
that's fine. Get to that. Anyone from the board have any questions for this witness?
I don't know that I heard, what is the projected height of the home?
I'm not the architect, but
That was asked earlier and not given. It was told a range of 27 to 35 feet, so.
Probably is going to be splitting the difference with that. I don't think we were going to go the full 35.
There's no official drawings yet of what this is going to be. Like, I know this is a very generic
It's going to be
rendering.
it is going to be similar to Sandra 201 interior.
The only photo I have is of the birdhouse.
Yeah, no, I have the.
But I don't think we want to look
It
at
is
that.
going to be very similar to 201. It's a basic colonial with probably a stone front, a little bit of a stone facade.
I do have to ask, aside from that, I am very curious, Mr. Manzi, what, your concerns are.
Well, I'm concerned with any corner lots and building on them because my understanding is these corner lots were never designed to be built on. They were buffer zones between the other houses on the block. If I can I come up there and we're
Yeah,
over
of
here
course,
and
wherever you're comfortable.
all the homes on on Main, which are up the top there, they're all required to have 45 feet from the roadway up to the front of the house. And so if you have that on both sides of the road, you have 100 and some feet between homes on Main Street. This home comes forward of that 45 feet required for front yards along this street, which if you look at the home that's being constructed, you get up the other end, I guess that's the east end of Main, and you look down the street, you see all the houses are 45 feet back from the roadway, except this new house that's being built across the street is a 201. Sticks out, I guess it has an 8-foot front yard. And I believe from looking at the plan that I went to the courthouse to look at, that this 40-foot lot was never to be a building lot, but was rather to extend that 40-foot, 45-foot distance from the roadway to the front of the other houses, if you understand what I mean.
I get what you're saying.
So we had this situation just a couple of weeks ago with Tennis Avenue was up against a property, a 40-foot lot that was declined. I'm guessing that one of those parameters that made you guys decline it was that it was, they were proposing, I think, a 15-foot side yard or something, where it wasn't really a side yard since it faced the road. It was really a front yard, which should have been 40 feet. So in my mind, these 40-foot lots that are, they're two 20-foot lots that are at the intersections were there to help maintain the 45-foot setback to the front of the homes that are along the streets in both directions.
The board also denied 201 and that's being built now. So, you know, in looking at something like this, if something were to be built there, what would you want to see, or what, you know, I get that you don't want to see anything built there, but if there were, what changes or what would you want to see happen with something like that?
Well, I guess it's if it's either or.
And I only asked that because you're seeing it now. We denied 201 and it went to media and it was approved, and now the house is being built. So if there's something that you're looking at this and saying, you know, this might be something I'd like to see change, what would that be? With the
Not
house?
change with the house?
Yeah.
I don't know what I would hope the board would deny this request. And if they have to take it to media and it gets done, well, that's what happens.
I have a question for the applicants. Is the house directly to the southeast, 405 Farview? Is that a colonial? What type of house is that?
I believe.
Sorry.
I didn't say it.
I'll let the, sir, if you happen to know the type of building that
Do you
is.
mind
I
sitting back there
believe
too,
that's
just
a
for the mic?
ranch.
That's a rancher,
A ranch with maybe an
405,
attic.
directly southeast, adjacent property is a rancher.
You're talking the house that would be like right here?
Yes, sir. What about directly east of the house? That would be 125 Main Street. What type of house is that?
I believe I would call it like a Cape Cod. It looks like a ranch, but
Okay,
it has dormers in the roof. I
okay,
don't know if there's living areas up in the, up in the roof area or
okay.
the attic area.
And directly north, that would be across Main Street,
That's a ranch also.
309 Farview. That's a rancher as well.
Yes. There's only, on that whole block, there might be 2 or 3 two-story homes. And that's all the way down Main, up Farview, all the way back up, what's that, Chestnut? At least to Tennis. There's only maybe 2 or 3 two-story homes.
Andy, I have a logistical question. And looking at the property on Google Maps, things like that, the neighbors' utility and wires go straight through the property. Like, how does that work with downtime? If we approve this, the whole, like, there's no way you can build this property and not affect the neighbor right now.
I think that would all have to be coordinated with PICO since it's public utility.
Okay.
It's not something that oversee.
Right. Okay. I know we deal with poles and things like that and nest, but
They would have to apply, whenever there's a construction project, they have to apply for a permit with PICO, like an intent to construct. That PICO reviews it, and they analyze it, and determine how they're going to shut down and provide service to.
and then the houses behind it relocate those wires and they'll get, okay,
All done.
okay.
And just a few quick questions. Ms. Kane, are you aware of other homes in the immediate vicinity of Farview and Maine that are 2 stories, similar to what you're proposing?
There are more than just a few. A lot of the homes are 2 stories. I don't know what that's, it's across the street. It's Caddick Corner. Well, it's actually absolutely across the street on Main is a 2-story. This is it, right here.
Right.
On
Farview. Or Main.
Farview, no, this is Main. across the street and.
Right, we know, there's a lot of two stories, but it depends on the lot size too. I mean, some of these lots, they're all different sizes too. So, yeah, we know there's some bigger houses, smaller houses, two-story, whatever, but it's.
Yeah, the one directly across the street from, the one on Main Street, directly across the street from 201 Main Street is looks like either a Cape Cod or a ranch.
Andy, can you, a question for Andy. We just saw an application for a 2.5-foot wall and some trees blocking view of a corner. How is this what is the rule or the view you need to see? Because now we have a house, which is very similar position to where those trees were that we just had that gentleman remove. What is the rule for that view?
10-foot, well, there's a clear sight triangle at every intersection. Eventually, the site plan should show that clear sight triangle as being unobstructed. But I believe our ordinance defines it as 10 feet back from the intersecting road partway width. So from that point, you would take along the center line to the intersecting street, you would go 75 feet in either direction. To the center line, 10 feet back from the intersection, and that creates that clear sight triangle. If that made.
I get it. If a car were at the corner.
Yeah, so essentially, from the center point of the intersection, you're 75 feet along the street that you are approaching. You're approaching that intersection, and then from that, from the edge of that cartway, you're 10 feet back. So essentially, it's a 10-foot stop bar that you see at every intersection.
So even though the front yard setback is proposed at 8 feet, because the driveway is on the left side here on the diagram, it would meet the kind of site requirement since driveways there. It's not
The
there.
driveway is essentially, there's no obstruction in the clear sight triangle. I mean, maybe the easiest thing to do would be to look at it. So you have your cartway width, this is your right of way width. And here's Main. So essentially from the center line, the street, you would come back 10 feet. 75 feet in this direction, 75 feet in the opposite direction, and connect those dots, and that's where the clear sight triangle is.
Thanks.
So per this plan, I don't see an obstruction.
And Nick, you don't believe there'll be any impact with the site distance as well, correct?
Correct.
Has there been any conversations with the neighbors that you're building up against right there on that corner? No one's talked to any of them to show any plans of what's just a conversation?
And you're, I'm sorry.
We're aware that this has always been, these lots are a bone of contention.
So are we.
So,
So, and those neighbors are getting 8 feet between the house and their property line, correct?
I'm sorry. Susan.
8 feet is what we're seeing.
11.
11?
Side yard, yeah.
Well, front and back is 8. I think side is 11. Right?
Yeah, front yard's 8, but that's facing Main.
That's facing Main, but the
Towards the
Farview house.
Farview would be 11.
Oh, yeah, I see.
And the opposite side of the driveway that's a driveway, so we are not close to on Main.
Right. That's the one house I was,
That's their
Curious if
driveway,
you're-
so
yeah.
it's not near the home. And then where our driveway would be is where the driveway is for the house on Farview. We're not house to house. Driveway to driveway.
And you said your family owned just this lot, this small corner lot, exclusively, nothing else in this neighborhood
Yeah.
since 19?
Yeah.
you have any history on why
I can tell
that's the
you
case?
that that entire neighborhood, that section there, all my grandparents.
Mhm.
I know that across the street was my girlfriend's, a very good friend of ours, her grandmother owned it. So they all purchased at the same time. And it was the country, going to the country. When Newtown had, you've heard the story. You've heard the story before. The dirt road up Westchester Pike. Yeah, my grandfather, we paid taxes on it. We did everything that was supposed to happen all the way through. My husband and I are fortunate enough to be able to. Hopefully the retirement place.
So, sir, just to clarify what Kevin was asking you. For you, it's sort of a zero sum. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you would oppose any type of building here at all.
That's true.
Okay.
But if something were to go there, I'm just asking what changes would you want to see?
What could I do about it? I could.
That's why I'm asking you.
I'm going to ask the applicant next. Would you consider a split level or a rancher house?
That level would be. Ranch would be no spot for a bedroom. It would. Can't do it.
Do you need a garage?
You can't
Or would
do
you
it.
be willing to give up a garage?
We gave up one garage.
Mhm.
Works. I'd rather see a car in a garage than two cars on a driveway. I mean, I know that there are other homes that two-car garages. I mean, rather put a car in a garage and only have one out there.
Would you be willing to establish any horticultural barriers between your property and the adjacent
But
property?
we're going to do whatever we have. Feeling curb appeal is, if we are going to live there or whatever it's going to be, something. I don't know that we want to put a barrier up. I think that feel of the openness, I don't think we'd want to put up a fence or anything.
Between
like
you
that.
and your, in the
Between
south.
the neighbors, we could
Yeah.
put something there.
You would be open to putting up some additional landscaping to
Sure.
help
Okay.
mitigate some.
There are trees right now separating that property from your property on Farview.
No, there's nothing
No,
there.
there's nothing.
In
There's a
behind,
bush.
It's an old.
There's just a little bush there. That's the guy's garage.
There's literally nothing.
There's really nothing. It's kind of grass.
I think the
weeds.
suggestion would be something like arborvitae's or some sort of,
Yeah, or
not necessarily a wall, but some line of demarcation with some type of bushes or arborvitae.
Driveway.
I
do
think that's
anything
what the
that's
board.
necessary. Not gonna put anything too big because it's it's the driveways, so you're not gonna want it close to their driveway, but we could put something there, of course.
That neighbor to the south, or your direct neighbor is not here, right?
There's driveway you're going up against.
Yeah,
where-
and it's kind of, there's like a little bit of a slope there.
Right.
So
That, and that homeowner is not here. It's it's neither of you two, correct?
No.
If you were limited in terms of the style of the house to a rancher or something, would that preclude you from wanting to have any interest in living there? Based
Oh,
on
if
your,
it's a ranch.
Is there a reason you need 3 bedrooms for you and your husband?
I'm still working, so one would be an office. One would be the master and bedroom.
Yes.
About it.
I'm just,
Closet.
okay. There's no basement, right?
Sorry?
There's no basement.
There is a basement.
There is a basement.
As I've listened to testimony, I have a couple more questions, if you don't mind. The home that is just south of the proposed building site is, as you said, is a rancher or whatever, it's a single story. I looked at that home in 1966 considering buying it before I found my own home just like down the street. And that house has such a water problem. Everything in the house in the basement was running wet, and there were big buckets in the basement collecting water. The water issues right there are tremendous. Additionally, are we aware that that corner is a school bus stop? And with all the children on that corner, with this house very close to the corner, it's going to present a hazard to those children. There's going to be, you're not going to be able to see around the corner. And depending upon what they do with it, shrubbery or whatever, there could be an awful hazard for those children.
Well, that was, we were just going over the line of sight that would be there anyway. So nothing that would be going in there that could obstruct that. Even if there were trees planted, they would have to come down. We just dealt with it on the last corner house. So
No.
definitely something we're aware of
Okay.
and appreciate the concerns.
And if they have a wet basement, then that's not next.
You wouldn't believe how wet that place was. It is.
Or
Yeah.
if that's the end of.
Yeah. Is there any
testimony.
additional testimony or?
We do not. I'm happy to provide. I know the board has heard a number of these applications, so I'm sure that you're familiar with the case law, but I'm happy to provide you with some of the case law dealing with the uniqueness of the property and the fact that it's a non-conforming lot and how that has a corresponding impact on the hardship that it creates to meet some of these dimensional requirements.
I mean, we obviously, it's all stuff that we've seen, so we're familiar with. But if there is no additional testimony and no additional questions from Mr. Mancy or Mr. Campaglia, any additional questions?
No.
Or-
And I don't.
And we appreciate it, guys. Thanks for your input. So I think what the board is going to do before we'll check any public comment on this application. Anybody that wishes to make a public comment? You can be for or against anything, whatever you want to say. Okay. And so let's close out the record on this then for now. And I think the board's going to take this under advisement and have a conversation. And do we want to just push this and we'll make a decision at the meeting in April?
Yes, you have
21st?
45 days
Yeah.
from the last hearing, this being the last hearing, I take it, so the next month's
Yeah.
meeting, if you like.
Yeah, let's do that for April 21st. All right. And do you have
We could
any?
meet next week.
This has become a full-time job. So we all, yeah. Yeah, we had a meeting last Thursday too.
Oh, I
so
know. I
we're-
heard you guys had me on TV. Say this horrible.
This is the special meeting.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
um,
Well, now you're missing the Villanova game.
don't
so.
remind everybody. So that's being taken under advisement too. So. All right, well, that's a wrap then. So we'll see you on the 21st.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Adjourn.